So where are the creative people in our society? We know that they're artists. So
they're starving in garrets.
Yeah, well, or are they working at McDonald's?
No, how about Bill Gates? He did all right. Steve Jobs, he did all right.
No, but I mean, what are the professions
they're at the pinnacle
where people get to be creative in their jobs? Because we've got this professional deformation that makes us think that only artists are creative and everybody else is just watching.
Well, the entrepreneurs for sure. So people who start companies, they're the same people. They're the same people as artists. And they're more gadget oriented usually, but the temperamental predictors are exactly the same. And so I would say you find artists, creative people overrepresented among people who you might regard as failures over their life course, and radically overrepresented among people that you would regard as spectacularly successful. Mm-hmm. And that's the high risk, high return gambling strategy essentially. So we did a study a while back predicting what graduate student attributes predicted scientific success. Creativity was negatively correlated. Well, it's because, again, science is actually an algorithmic machine, right? That's why it's so powerful, is that you can get people who aren't creative but who will work hard, and they crank the levers, and out comes knowledge. And it's an extraordinarily powerful technology. But you can't get creative things published. You can get incrementally better things published. Creative things, it's like no one has any idea what to do with them. And the non-creative people will think, no, that's rubbish. It's like they don't know any better, but it's very, very hard to evaluate.
Can you still talk about creativity when someone has a great idea in 1964 and then just proceeds to produce that idea and replicate the same thing for the rest of their lives? I'm getting into the deep psychoanalysis of creativity.
Okay, well, there's a couple of things I would say about that. The first is that people were upset about that painting because they think that art is decoration. They thought, well, that's not decoration, or they think that I'd be able to do that, which they wouldn't, by the way, because it's a lot harder than it sounds or than it looks. But art is not decoration. That's absolutely foolish. Art is exploration. And artists train people to see. Like, when most of you would, I presume, would regard Impressionist art as both self-evidently beautiful and also as relatively traditional, because, of course, you all now see like Impressionists see, all of you that are even vaguely trained, even vaguely part of the 20th century. You can't help it because the Impressionist aesthetic saturated everything, saturated advertisements, saturated movies, saturated everything. You now see like an Impressionist. They taught you to see, but back when the Impressionists first showed up, there were riots when their art was hung because the idea of perceiving that way was so radical that it caused people to have emotional fits. And so artists teach people to see, and I mean that literally. It's very hard to perceive the world. And so, and who was the artist that made all the squares with red and yellow and white?
Oh, Pete Mondrian.
Mondrian, he's a great example. I mean, if you go downtown Toronto now, there are Mondrian buildings everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so he was playing very, very carefully and intensely with these arrays of geometric shapes, and that's not well, I like it, but it's not particularly decorative, and it's certainly not naturalistic or realistic. It's like, what's this crazy guy up to with all his squares? It's like, well, everything is built out of squares. So he's thinking, well, what are the interesting things we can do with squares so they shimmer and glow, and so that we get the geometric harmony proper, and it's just invaded architecture. You can see Mondrian absolutely everywhere. And so these people, so here's a way of thinking about artistic and creative people from a biological perspective. So imagine that the world is basically an explored territory inside an unexplored territory. Every world is like that. Everywhere you go is like that. There's things you know and there's things you don't know. And the conservative people like to be in the middle of the things that are known. And they can master that space, and they're good at maintaining it. But the artists like to be right out on the edge, and that's the edge between chaos and order.